Ride me like you ride your horses. Giant mail order bride ordered the wild cowboy. Westromance. Lena stepped off the dusty stagecoach, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth of the wide-open plains. The sun was high in the sky, casting golden light across the endless fields of grass, stretching as far as the eye could see. She pulled her coat tighter around her tall frame and looked at the ranch in front of her. It was larger than she had imagined from the letters she had exchanged with Colton, the cowboy she had ordered through the mail. The wooden fences were weathered, the barn looked sturdy, and horses grazed calmly nearby, their tails swishing lazily in the warm breeze. Everything about the place seemed alive with hard work and endless freedom. She adjusted the strap of her bag and walked toward the ranch house. Her heart beat fast, a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a new life, far from the crowded city streets she had known. Bah! She had dreamed about it for months, imagining the wild plains, the horses, and the chance to start over. Now, standing at the threshold of that dream, reality was bigger, louder, and somehow more real than she had expected. Colton was on the porch, a tall, rugged man with sun-darkened skin and hands that looked like they could lift a horse without breaking a sweat. He had expected her to arrive today, but seeing her in person was different. Lena's height and confident posture made him pause. She did not fit the quiet, delicate image he had imagined from her letters. Instead, she looked strong and ready, a woman who seemed like she could handle life on a ranch. For a moment, he simply watched her, unsure how to begin.
"Are you Lena?"
he finally asked, his voice low but steady. He was not used to strangers, especially women, stepping into his world.
"Yes,"
Lena said, her voice clear.
"You must be Colton."
She held out her hand, and he shook it firmly. There was no hesitation in her grip, no fear in her eyes, and for a brief moment, Colton felt a mix of respect and wariness. This was not going to be easy, but maybe it could be interesting.
"Back."
She stepped closer to the porch and looked around the ranch. The scent of hay, horses, and warm earth filled her senses. She saw tools leaning against the barn, saddles stacked neatly, and the cattle grazing in the distance. It was a life of work, of sweat and effort, and she was ready for it.
Colton led her inside. The house was simple but comfortable, with wooden floors and a fireplace that looked like it had been used for decades.
"You'll sleep in the guest room for now," he said, motioning toward a small room with a window that looked out over the pastures. Lena nodded, placing her bag down. She was tired from the long journey, but her mind was full of plans and determination. The first meal was quiet. Colton and Lena ate at the kitchen table, the sounds of horses and the wind outside filling the pauses in their conversation. Lena asked questions about the ranch, the horses, and the daily chores. Breath. Colton answered simply, watching her carefully. She was not timid, and she was not afraid of the hard work. That much was clear. After dinner, Colton suggested they take a walk around the ranch.
Lena agreed, excited to see more. The air was cool and the sky was painted with the colors of the setting sun.
She watched the cattle moving slowly across the field, their soft lowing blending with the gentle rustle of the grass. "Tomorrow we'll start with the basics," Colton said, glancing at her. "Feeding the horses, checking the fences, and helping with the cattle. It's hard work."
"I can handle it," Lena replied.
"I didn't come here to sit and watch. I want to do my part." Colton raised an eyebrow. Few women had the courage to say that. Most were intimidated by the ranch life, by the long hours and the physical labor. Lena seemed different, and that made him curious. The next morning came early, with the rooster crowing and the sun rising over the hills. Lena was already awake, stretching and preparing herself for the day. Colton found her outside, brushing down a horse with steady hands. Breaths. She had never been on a ranch before, but she was determined to learn quickly. Good morning, Colton said. Ready to work?
Always, Lena said with a smile. The day started with feeding the horses.
Lena struggled at first, trying to measure the grain correctly and carry the buckets without spilling. Colton watched her, offering guidance when needed, but mostly letting her figure things out herself. She was quick to learn, and soon she moved around the stables with more confidence. Next came checking the fences. The wooden posts were old, and some had been damaged by storms. Lena lifted heavy boards, hammered nails, and tightened loose wires. Great. Her muscles ached by the afternoon, but she felt a sense of pride she had never felt in the city. Colton nodded in approval, noticing her strength and determination. By midday, they were moving cattle. Colton rode his horse with skill, guiding the herd with quiet commands. Lena followed on foot, her boots sinking into the soft dirt, her hands steady. She learned to anticipate the cattle's movements, to stay out of their way but still keep them on track. It was exhausting, but exhilarating. As the sun began to set, Lena and Colton rested by the barn. Lena's face was flushed, and her hands were sore, but she smiled. I didn't know it would be this hard, she admitted. But I like it. I feel alive, Deja.
Colton studied her. Most people don't last a week on a ranch, he said.
You're stronger than I thought. Lena laughed softly. I'm not here to be weak, Buck. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to stay. Brace. They sat on the porch, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the lowing of the cattle, the creak of the wind in the fences, and the distant neigh of a horse. Lena felt a sense of peace she had never known in the city. Perhaps she was part of something bigger now, a life full of challenges, but also full of freedom. Colton remained cautious. He had seen many women come and go, unable to handle the work or the isolation. Lena was different, he realized, but he still had doubts. Could she truly be part of this world, or was she just another visitor passing through? The night grew colder, and Lena went to her room, tired but satisfied. She unpacked her few belongings and looked out the window at the vast plains, lit by moonlight. She thought about the work she had done, the horses she had learned to feed, and the fences she had repaired. As she thought about Colton, silent but observant, watching her every move, there was something in him that drew her, a quiet strength that matched her own determination. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of horses running freely, cattle moving across the fields, and the wide open sky above. She knew the days ahead would be challenging, but she was ready. She was here to prove herself, to be part of this life, and to find a place where she truly belonged. By morning she was up again, ready for another day. Colton greeted her with a nod, and they went back to work. Each task, from feeding the animals to repairing the fences, was a step toward mutual respect. Lena was learning the ways of the ranch, and Colton was beginning to see her not just as a visitor, but as someone who could truly be part of this world. The day passed in a blur of hard work, laughter, and small victories.
Lena learned to ride the horses under Colton's watchful eye, her confidence growing with each step.
Breath. She began to understand the rhythms of the ranch, the needs of the animals, the flow of the land, and the quiet satisfaction of a day's labor. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Lena and Colton sat on the porch once more. Breaths. She looked at him and smiled. I think I'm going to like it here, she said softly. Colton looked at her, a hint of a smile on his lips.
You might, he replied.
But don't think it's going to be easy. Ranch life isn't for everyone. I didn't come here for easy, Lena said. I came here to live. Colton nodded slowly, realizing that this woman, taller and stronger than most, had the heart to match. She was not just surviving the ranch. She was ready to become part of it. And for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this mail-order bride was exactly what the ranch, and he himself, needed. The first chapter of their lives together had begun, full of promise, challenge, and the quiet thrill of discovery.
Lena was here. Colton was cautious but intrigued, and the wide-open plain stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities.
The next morning the sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting a warm glow over the fields and the horses grazing quietly. Lena woke early, as usual, and dressed quickly. She had learned that ranch life started before the sun was fully awake, and she was determined not to fall behind. She packed a small breakfast and headed outside, where Colton was already tending to the horses. "Morning," he said without looking up. His voice was calm but carried the weight of someone who had lived in the wilds of the plains all his life. "Good morning," Lena replied cheerfully, trying to keep her energy up despite the soreness in her arms and legs from the previous day. She approached the horse stable with a mix of excitement and determination. Today, she was going to ride, and she knew it would not be easy. Colton turned to her, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "Bah. You ready for your first ride?" "Yes," Lena said, her voice firm. She had been waiting for this moment, feeling the pull of the wide-open land and the horses beneath her. He led her to a tall, brown mare named Daisy. The horse had a calm demeanor but was strong, and Colton warned Lena that she would need both balance and confidence to ride her. He adjusted the saddle and bridle with careful hands, showing Lena the proper way to tighten the straps and check the reins. Lena listened intently, absorbing every detail. When it was time to mount, Lena hesitated for a moment. The horse was taller than she had expected, and the first leap into the saddle required strength, preparation. With Colton's encouragement, she swung herself up, landing in the saddle with a firm grip on the reins. Her heart raced, but she felt a thrill of accomplishment. "Good," Colton said, nodding. "Keep your back straight, and don't forget to use your legs to guide her." For the first few minutes, Lena struggled to find her rhythm. Daisy moved unevenly, and Lena nearly lost her balance several times. Colton stayed close, holding the lead rope at first, guiding the horse through gentle turns. "Relax," he said quietly. "You're tense." Horses can feel that. You need to trust yourself, and Daisy will trust you. Lena took a deep breath, remembering his words. Slowly, she relaxed her grip, let her legs hug the horse more naturally, and began to move with Daisy instead of against her. Responded, picking up a steady trot. Lena laughed softly, the sound mixing with the wind across the plains. She felt a new kind of freedom, one she had never experienced in the city. Colton watched her carefully, impressed by her quick progress. Most newcomers took days, sometimes weeks, to feel comfortable in the saddle. Pain. Lena was learning fast, her confidence growing with every step.
After a while, he let go of the lead rope entirely, letting her ride independently across the field.
Lena felt the wind in her hair, the rhythm of the horse beneath her, and a sense of connection to the land and the animals that filled her with awe. She looked over at Colton, who rode beside her on his own horse, a small smile on his lips. "Not bad," he said. "You might make a real cowboy out of yourself yet." The day continued with more lessons. Lena learned to rope cattle, to guide them from one field to another, and to understand their movements. It was difficult work, requiring patience and precision, but she was determined. Colton noticed how she didn't complain, how she kept pushing herself, and he began to see her as more than just a newcomer. She was a partner, someone who could handle the challenges of ranch life with him. By midday, they stopped for a break under the shade of a large oak tree. Lena drank from her canteen and wiped sweat from her brow.
This is harder than I imagined, she admitted, laughing softly. But it's worth it.
Desk. It's hard work, yes. But that's the point. If you want to survive here, you have to work. Every day, no matter the weather or the problems. Most people can't handle it. But you're different. Lena smiled, feeling a sense of pride, aspiration. She had wanted to prove herself, and every task completed felt like a small victory. But she also realized that ranch life was more than physical strength. It was about understanding the animals, respecting the land, and learning to work with someone who had lived this way all his life. In the afternoon, they faced a small crisis. One of the younger horses had wandered off into a neighboring field, and Lena volunteered to help bring it back. Colton watched, ready to intervene if needed, but Lena remained calm. She approached the horse slowly, speaking in soft tones, and after a few tense minutes managed to guide it back to the corral.
That's impressive, Colton said, his voice carrying a rare note of admiration.
You handled that well. Most people would panic. Lena laughed, brushing hay from her coat.
I just tried not to scare it more than it already was. The rest of the afternoon passed with smaller chores, mending fences, moving feed, and checking the cattle.
Reyes, her hands blistered and her legs sore, but she felt alive in a way she had never felt before. Every task, every challenge brought a sense of accomplishment she had never known in the city.
As evening approached, Colton suggested they ride out to the farthest pasture to check on the cattle before nightfall. Lena agreed eagerly.
The ride was long, the sun low in the sky, and the wind blowing gently across the plains. Lena felt a deep connection to the land, to the horses, and even to Colton, who rode silently beside her. They didn't need many words. The work and the shared experience spoke for itself.
Suddenly, a calf broke away from the herd, running toward a steep slope.
Lena acted quickly, steering Daisy to block its path and guiding it back toward the others. Colton was amazed at her instinct and courage. "You've got guts," he said, shaking his head. "Not many people would have done that."
Oh! Lena smiled, her heart racing.
"I didn't want it to get hurt, that's all." Colton studied her, realizing that she was not just brave, but thoughtful and careful, with a respect for the animals in the land. She wasn't a city woman who came to play cowboy. She was learning, adapting, and proving that she could be a true partner. When they returned to the ranch, the sky was painted with shades of pink and orange. Lena dismounted, her legs tired but steady. Colton handed her a bucket of water to wash Daisy, and she took the task seriously, carefully cleaning the horse's coat and brushing its mane.
You're a quick learner, Colton said quietly.
I didn't expect someone to handle all this on their first full day. Lena laughed softly, the sound mixing with the evening breeze. I told you, I'm not here to fail. I want to be part of this life. I want to be part of this ranch. Colton looked at her thoughtfully. Her determination, her strength, and her willingness to learn were impressive. He had expected resistance, mistakes, and hesitation. Instead, he found someone who could match his pace, who could face challenges head-on, and who seemed ready to share in the responsibilities of ranch life. That night, after the chores were done and the animals were settled, Lena and Colton sat on the porch, looking out at the stars. The ranch was quiet, the sounds of nature surrounding them. Her voice soft but confident.
I didn't come here to be anyone's servant, she said.
I came here to live, to learn, and to be part of something real. I want to work with you, not just for you.
Colton was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly.
I like that, he said. Most people don't understand that. They think it's all romance and adventure.
It's not. It's work, it's struggle, and it's responsibility. But you might just have what it takes. Breathe.
Lena smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and belonging. She was no longer just a newcomer. She was part of the ranch, part of the life, and part of Colton's world in a way she had never imagined. As they talked into the night, Lena realized that she had found something she had been searching for all her life, a place where she could be strong, independent, and connected to something greater than herself. The ranch was tough, demanding, and full of challenges, but it was also full of freedom, beauty, and the chance to prove herself every single day. Colton watched her, feeling a mix of respect, curiosity, and something he couldn't quite name. He had spent years living alone, running the ranch by himself and guarding his heart. Lena's presence was challenging, unexpected, and welcome. He wasn't ready to admit it fully, but he knew that things were changing. The first full day together had passed, filled with work, laughter, lessons, and small victories, and Lena was exhausted, sore, and proud. She had proven to herself and to Colton that she belonged, that she could handle the challenges, and that she was willing to fight for her place. As the night deepened, the ranch quieted, and the stars shone brightly overhead, Lena went to her room, feeling a sense of peace and excitement. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more lessons, and more opportunities to prove herself. But for now she rested, knowing that she had taken her first steps toward becoming part of the life she had dreamed about for so long. The bond between her and Colton was still new, fragile, and full of unspoken tension, but it had begun. Respect had been earned, trust had started to grow, and the wide-open plains promised endless possibilities for growth, adventure, and perhaps even love. The next morning, the ranch was quiet, the mist lifting slowly from the fields as the sun began to rise. Lena stretched and rubbed her arms, still sore from the previous day's work. But her spirit was high. She was learning faster than she had imagined, and every new challenge gave her a sense of accomplishment she had never felt before. She dressed quickly and stepped outside, ready to face the day. Holton was already in the barn, preparing to feed the horses. Right. He glanced up as Lena approached, nodding briefly. "Morning," he said. "Ready for another day?" "Always," Lena replied, her voice confident. She was determined to prove herself again, not just to Colton, but to herself. Every day was a test, and she wanted to pass it. The morning began with the usual chores: feeding the horses, checking the water troughs, and moving the cattle. Anna worked steadily, her movements becoming more natural and confident. Colton watched her carefully, noting how quickly she adapted. She was learning not just the physical skills, but the instincts needed to read the animals, anticipate their movements, and act before problems arose. By mid-morning, they faced their first real challenge. One of the fences near the edge of the property had been damaged in a storm the previous night, leaving the cattle dangerously close to wandering onto a neighboring ranch. Colton sighed and shook his head. "We need to fix this quickly, or we'll have a bigger problem." Lena didn't hesitate. She grabbed tools and wood, following Colton to the damaged fence. He handed her a hammer and nails, showing her where to secure the boards. Her hands were steady, her mind focused. Ow. She didn't complain, didn't hesitate, and worked with determination. As they repaired the fence, a sudden shout came from the field. A young calf had slipped through a gap they hadn't noticed, running toward a small creek at the edge of the property. Lena froze for a moment, but Colton called her name.
"Go after it."
Without a second thought, Lena ran toward the calf. She spoke softly, guiding it gently away from the creek and back toward the safety of the herd.
Colton followed close behind, riding his horse quickly to ensure the calf didn't get hurt. Together they managed to bring it back, the tension of the moment leaving Lena's heart racing.
"That was impressive," Colton said afterward, his voice low but sincere. "You didn't panic."
You handled it like someone who's been doing this for years.
Lena smiled, brushing the sweat from her brow. I didn't want it to get hurt.
That's all. She realized in that moment that ranch life wasn't just about strength. It was about quick thinking, courage, and respect for the animals. After the fence and the calf incident, they took a brief break under the shade of a large oak tree. Lena drank from her canteen and wiped dirt from her hands, her muscles aching but her spirit alive. She felt proud, not just for helping with the fence or saving the calf, but for proving to herself that she could handle this life.
Colton watched her quietly.
He had spent years living alone, believing he didn't need anyone, that he could handle everything himself. But Lena's presence was changing something in him. She was strong, fearless, and willing to face challenges head-on. And for the first time he felt the stirrings of trust, and maybe even admiration. The afternoon brought another challenge. A neighboring rancher had come to check on his own cattle, but his attitude was rough and suspicious. He glanced at Lena with a smirk and made a comment about mail-order brides and city women not being cut out for ranch life. Lena felt a flash of anger but didn't respond immediately. She knew that words could be sharper than any tool, and she didn't want to escalate the situation.
Colton stepped in, his presence commanding attention. "She's part of this ranch," he said firmly. "She works hard and earns her place here."
Don't mistake her height or her strength for weakness. The neighbor raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised by Colton's defense, and muttered something under his breath before riding off. Lena felt a mix of relief and gratitude. Colton's support was quiet but powerful, and it reminded her that they were starting to work as a team, not just as individuals. Spess. Later that afternoon, they faced another test when a sudden summer storm rolled in. Dark clouds gathered quickly, and the wind began to howl across the plains. Lena and Colton moved quickly to secure the animals and bring the cattle closer to the barn. The rain came down in heavy sheets, soaking them to the skin as they worked tirelessly. Lena felt the adrenaline mix with exhaustion, but she refused to let it slow her down. She learned to adjust her grip on the reins, to move with the cattle instead of against them, and to communicate silently with Colton through gestures and glances. The storm was fierce, but together they managed to guide the herd to safety. By the time they were done, they were drenched, muddy, and tired. Lena laughed, the sound mixing with the rain, feeling alive in a way she never had before. Colton looked at her with a rare smile, acknowledging not just her skill, but her courage and resilience. "You're making this harder for me than I expected," he said, shaking his head. Breath. "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." Ow, her heart full. "I didn't come here to just survive," she said. "I came here to live, to learn, and to be part of this life." The storm passed as quickly as it had arrived, leaving the ranch wet but safe. Lena and Colton returned to the house, changing into dry clothes and warming themselves by the fire. For the first time, they sat together without the pressure of work, sharing a quiet moment of reflection. Colton broke the silence. "You've got guts," he said, looking at Lena. "Most people would have given up by now." "Did. You didn't. That tells me a lot about you." Lena felt a warmth in her chest, not just from the fire, but from his words. She realized that the respect between them was growing, slowly, through action rather than conversation. Best. Trust was building, and with it, a sense of partnership she hadn't expected to feel so soon. That evening, Lena stayed up late, looking out at the plains under a sky full of stars. This time of the day, the fence, the calf, the storm, and felt proud of how she had handled them. She was learning that ranch life was not just about strength, but about patience, observation, and resilience. But Colton, meanwhile, sat quietly in his own room, thinking about Lena. He had spent years keeping people at a distance, believing that trust and vulnerability were weaknesses. But Lena's determination, her courage, and her willingness to face challenges head-on were slowly breaking down the walls he had built around himself. Breath. He wasn't ready to admit it fully, but he felt something stirring, a connection he hadn't expected, one that made him question the solitary life he had known for so long. The next morning brought more work as usual. Lena and Colton continued to build their skills, learning from each other and growing as a team. They faced small crises, horses acting up, fences needing repair, and occasional disagreements, but each challenge strengthened their bond. Lena learned to anticipate Colton's movements and instructions, while he began to rely on her instincts and judgment. One afternoon, as they were moving the cattle across a steep hill, Lena almost lost her balance. Colton reached out instinctively, steadying her and preventing a fall. They locked eyes for a moment, and Lena felt a spark of something unspoken between them, a mix of trust, excitement, and the beginnings of deeper feelings. "You've got to be careful," Colton said softly, his voice tinged with concern. "I can handle it," Lena replied, her tone confident but gentle. She realized that he was not just a teacher or a boss. He was someone who cared, even if he didn't say it outright. The days turned into weeks, and their relationship continued to evolve. Lena became more skilled in riding, roping, and handling the cattle, while Colton learned to appreciate her perspective, her humor, and her ability to stay calm under pressure. They shared small victories, quiet conversations, and moments of laughter that made the hard work feel lighter. But life on the ranch was not without its challenges. A sudden scare with a runaway horse tested their teamwork, and Lena had to take the lead in guiding it back to safety. Colton watched, impressed by her calm determination and quick thinking. He realized that she was no longer a newcomer. She was an equal, someone who could stand beside him and face whatever challenges came their way. By the end of Part 3, Lena and Colton had faced storms, crises, and moments of doubt, but through it all, they had grown closer. Trust had been built through action, respect had been earned through perseverance, and the foundations of a true partnership were taking shape. The wide-open plains stretched before them, full of challenges and opportunities, and Lena and Colton knew that the life they were building together was only beginning. They had survived the storms, faced the dangers, and proven to each other that they could rely on one another. As the sun set over the ranch, casting long shadows across the fields, Lena and Colton stood side by side, watching the cattle settle for the night. There was a quiet understanding between them now, unspoken but powerful. They were no longer just teacher and student, or mail-order bride and cowboy. They were partners, learning, growing, and facing the future together. The ranch was more than a place of work now. It was a place of connection, trust, and the first stirrings of love. And both Lena and Colton felt it, deep in their hearts, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The morning sun rose over the plains, casting a soft golden light across the ranch. The air was crisp and filled with the earthy scent of grass and horses. Lena stretched and rubbed her arms, smiling as she listened to the low neighs of the horses in the stable. This ranch, which had once felt so intimidating and vast, now felt like home.
She had grown stronger, more confident, and more connected to the land and to Colton.
Colton was already outside checking the fences. His tall figure moved with the ease and precision of someone who knew every inch of the ranch like the back of his hand. He glanced at Lena and nodded. "Morning. Ready for another day?" "Always," she said, her voice full of determination. She had learned that mornings were busy, and every task mattered. Today was no different. They began with their usual chores, feeding the horses, checking the water troughs, and moving the cattle to a new grazing area. Lena moved with ease, her confidence growing with every step. She guided the horses, balanced on her saddle, and helped Colton direct the herd without hesitation. Colton watched her closely, impressed by how far she had come since her first day. By mid-morning, they faced a challenge that tested both their skills and their trust. One of the gates to the back pasture had come loose, leaving the cattle vulnerable to wandering off. Colton handed Lena tools and showed her how to secure it properly. She worked quickly, hammering nails and tightening hinges, her hands steady and precise. As they finished, a sudden movement caught Lena's eye. A young calf had slipped through another opening in the fence, running toward a steep slope near the creek. Lena's heart raced, but she reacted quickly, guiding the calf with gentle commands and careful movements. Colton rode beside her, helping keep the calf on track. Together they managed to bring it back safely. "You handled that well," Colton said afterward, his voice low but sincere. "Most people would have panicked." Lena smiled, feeling proud.
I didn't want it to get hurt!
That's all. She realized that life on the ranch was about courage, quick thinking, and working together. After securing the cattle, they rode back to the barn to feed and water the horses. The ranch work was hard, exhausting, and sometimes frustrating. But Lena felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Each task completed, each challenge overcome, gave her confidence and pride. She knew she was becoming part of this life, part of this ranch, and part of Colton's world. As the day went on, Colton suggested they take a break near the edge of the field. Lena dismounted, brushing Daisy's coat with careful strokes, while Colton leaned against his horse, watching her. There was a quiet understanding between them now, unspoken but powerful. "You've come a long way," Colton said finally. "I didn't expect someone to adapt so quickly. You're not just surviving, you're thriving." Well, Lena looked at him, her eyes bright. "I didn't come here for an easy life," she said.
I came here to live fully, to learn, and to be part of this ranch. I want to be your partner, not just your guest." Colton studied her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes.
He had spent years keeping people at a distance, guarding his heart, and believing he could handle life alone. But Lena was changing that. Her courage, determination, and strength were breaking through the walls he had built around himself. The afternoon brought another challenge. A neighboring rancher had come to check on his own cattle. But he was rude and dismissive, making jokes about Lena and questioning her place on the ranch.
Lena felt a surge of anger but held herself steady.
She didn't respond harshly, knowing that words could escalate conflict. Colton stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "She's part of this ranch," he said firmly. "She works hard, earns her place, and knows what she's doing."
"Don't mistake strength for weakness." The neighbor raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised, and muttered something before riding off.
Lena felt a wave of relief and gratitude. Colton had defended her without drama, quietly and firmly.
It reminded her that they were more than teacher and student. They were partners, standing together. As evening approached, Colton suggested they ride out to the farthest pastures to check the herd before nightfall. Lena eagerly agreed. The ride was long, the sky painted with shades of orange and pink. The wind blew across the plains, and Lena felt a deep sense of connection to the land, the horses, and to Colton, who rode silently beside her. Suddenly, a calf broke away from the herd, running toward a steep hill. Lena acted quickly, guiding it back with steady hands and careful movements.
Colton was amazed by her calmness and instinct, realizing that she could handle dangerous situations just as well as he could.
"You've got guts," he said, shaking his head. "Not many people would have done that." "I just wanted to keep it safe," Lena said, smiling. That's all. The moment passed, but a quiet tension lingered between them, a mix of trust, admiration, and the beginnings of something deeper. Colton realized he had been wrong to doubt her at the beginning. She wasn't just strong, she was thoughtful, capable, and resilient. When they returned to the ranch, the stars were beginning to appear in the sky. The air was cool, and the ranch was quiet, filled only with the sounds of the animals settling for the night. Lena and Colton sat on the porch, reflecting on the day, drowned in desperation. "You've changed a lot since the first day," Colton said. "Not just in skills, but everything."
"I can see you're part of this life now. You belong here."
Lena felt warmth in her chest, a mix of pride and gratitude. "I do belong," she said softly. "I've worked hard, yes, but I've also learned so much."
"You've taught me more than I could imagine." Colton looked at her, and for the first time, he spoke from the heart.
"I wasn't sure about you at first," he admitted. "I didn't know if you'd fit in. But you've proven yourself every day. You're strong, brave, and smart. I respect you. More than I thought I could feel about anyone." Lena felt a shiver run through her. She had hoped for this connection, but hearing it from him made it real. "I respect you too," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've shown me patience, guidance, and trust, and you've let me be myself even when it's hard."
They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the ranch around them.
It was quiet, peaceful, and full of unspoken understanding. Both knew that the bond between them had grown into something real, something lasting. The following days were busy but filled with shared victories and quiet moments of closeness. Lena continued to improve her skills, riding with confidence, roping cattle, and managing chores independently. Colton began to rely on her instincts and judgment, realizing that she was not just a helper but an equal partner. One afternoon, as they worked together to repair a damaged fence, Colton paused and looked at Lena. "You know," he said, "I think this ranch is better with you here, not just because you help with the work, but because you bring something I didn't know I needed." Lena smiled, feeling her heart lift. "I feel the same way," she said. "This place, the land, the animals, they feel like home. And you feel like someone I can trust, someone I can rely on." Colton nodded slowly, his eyes softening. For years he had guarded his heart, believing that independence meant strength. But Lena had shown him that strength could also come from partnership, trust, and shared effort. As evening fell, they rode together across the plains, the wind in their hair and the wide open sky above them. Lena felt a sense of freedom and belonging unlike anything she had ever known. Colton, riding beside her, felt a rare sense of peace, realizing that this partnership, this connection, was something he had been missing all his life. When they returned to the ranch, the sun had set and the stars sparkled above. They tended the animals one last time, then sat together on the porch, sharing quiet conversation and laughter. The trust between them had grown into respect, and the respect had blossomed into something more, a deep, abiding connection that neither could deny. That night, Lena looked out at the plains, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She had faced challenges, proven herself, and earned her place on the ranch. She had found strength, courage, and belonging. And she had found Colton, a man who had once seemed distant and guarded, but who now shared his life, his work, and his heart with her. Colton, sitting beside her, watched the stars and thought about the journey they had taken together. He had learned to trust, to open his heart, and to see Lena not just as a helper or a newcomer, but as a partner, equal in every way. He realized that the ranch was better with her in it, not just for the work, but for the life and love she brought. The ranch was safe, the animals were cared for, and the days ahead promised new challenges and opportunities. But Lena and Colton knew that whatever came their way, they would face it together. The partnership they had built was strong, based on trust, respect, and shared experience. And the bond between them, born of hard work and mutual admiration, had grown into something lasting, powerful, and real. As the night deepened, they sat quietly, side by side, feeling the connection that had grown over weeks of shared work, challenges, and triumphs. The plains stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities, and both knew that they had found something rare, a partnership of equals, a bond built on trust, courage, and the quiet power of love.
For Lena and Colton, the ranch was no longer just a place of work.
It was home, a place where they could grow, learn, and thrive together. A place where their bond, forged through challenges and strengthened by respect, could flourish.
And as they rode out together the next morning, side by side, they felt the true joy of partnership, freedom, and the endless possibilities of the wide-open West.